Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and I really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to watch the video today and spend some time with me. I always appreciate that. And guys, I've been wanting to do this video for a while. We're going to be talking about what I consider the probable and possible futures of bass fishing over the next 10 years. Based upon the decisions that we make, the reality of the future of the sport is going to take one or two paths. The dark side or the light side, the good side or the bad side. And I want to sort of lay each one of those out in today's video and sort of explain to you what I'm talking about. And obviously I'll be really eager and curious to get your guys' opinion as well after I get done with the video. So look forward to hearing that. Also, guys, before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping tips. I just wanted to thank everybody that's taken the time to use all the links I put in the description of the videos here to support Intuitive Angling. Every one of you guys out there that are using my Tackle Warehouse link to purchase your fishing tackle in the description of the video, you guys are the reason this channel's on YouTube. So thank you very much for that. And as well, everybody that's been hitting that subscribe button to Intuitive Angling, really appreciate that. Okay, guys. First of all, I want to say about this, you guys are well aware of my anti-tech stance. And when I say this, guys, I'm not coming at this position from some old geezer that's living in the past that wishes for the good old days. I'm coming at it at a clear-eyed focus on the reality of the situation that's in front of us here. That's all there is to it. It's living in reality instead of the denial of reality. So what I want to do here is I want to lay out two possible futures that we can look forward to in the sport of bass fishing, depending upon the decisions that we make in the sport. The people that are in positions of power that influence the rest of us are going to have a large role to play in this. So the first thing, let's talk about the dark side that the sport is currently headed down. Make no mistake about it, guys, the sport of bass fishing is headed down a dark road right now, and I want to explain what I mean by that. First thing I want to talk about is the obvious one that we always talk about is the whole technology part of it. Guys, you cannot ever underestimate the dangers of exploding and advancing technology in fishing, specifically electronic technology, to what it's going to do to the sport in terms of taking away everything that is traditionally held close and dear about fishing in general, the purity aspect of it, the intrinsic value of the mystery and the magic. We've talked about all this before. And then you have the sustainability issues that come along with advancing technology that, quite frankly, the people that should be standing up against this are not, because don't rely on the tournament organizations to do it, because they have a vested interest in profiting off electronic companies, that they're not going to do the right thing. Unless they have a tremendous amount of pressure from the public. Don't look for the fish and game people to do anything about it, because historically they drag their feet tremendously on issues like this, and they operate on theory over fact most of the time. So from those two stances there, this change is going to have to come from the bass fishing public. Now, one of the things I'll mention with this is let's talk about why this is important when you talk about heading down the dark path or the light path. Let's take football, for example. Football, or baseball or football, either one. Let's talk about baseball. Baseball has basically remained unchanged for over 100 years. You have a glove, you have a bat, you have a ball, and then you have the game. Now, there's been improvements in the gloves, just like there's been improvements in fishing rods, but ultimately the sport has remained the same. There's been no technological advances within the sport of baseball that have been thrust upon it. It has the value of the game and the attraction of the game excuse me, has remained the same because it doesn't need anything else. And that's the same thing about fishing, guys. Fishing does not need all the bells and whistles that we see coming upon the sport with the technological advances and all the other $100,000 bass boats. Fishing can hold its own just by fishing. You don't have to have everything with this. And that's one of the things, the problems that we have with this is our sport is morphing from the point of which it was at its best, which was basically back in the, mid 70s to mid 80s is when bass fishing was actually at its purest form. And we have morphed that sport into something pretty much unrecognizable now that you have not seen in any other sport. Like I said, any other sport like baseball, you've seen some glove advances and, maybe, there's better helmets, something like that. Basic stuff that doesn't have anything to do with technology. It's just slight equipment improvements. Okay, from that standpoint, the next standpoint, as far as what's heading the sport of fishing down the dark path here, is the fact that there is such a denial of reality in terms of what we are doing to our fisheries, as far as having them, they're overfished, there's too many bass tournaments, there's too much pollution allowed in these lakes. This is all taking a toll on our fishing. Every single year, it's taking a little bit away from it every year. We have more people on the water than we've ever had. We try to grow the sport and try to get more people into it. Tournament organizations are popping up every single year. You have more circuits popping up over and over again. You don't have any authority. There's no regulatory committee that monitors how many tournaments are allowed on a lake. It's basically, from what I can see, and it's just like, you guys just have as many tournaments as you want to. If you want to have 1,000 boats on the lake in a tournament, go for it. I've seen that over and over again. So there's nobody in charge here. There's no adults in the room that say, okay, look guys, you are not going to have 6 bass tournaments on Table Rock Lake this weekend. If you want to have your bass tournament, you have one circuit apply for a tournament. You have your tournament on May 5th. If you want to have another tournament, you have your tournament on May 10th or something like that. You guys are not going to have 6 bass tournaments on the lake. That is another thing that's been destructive to our sport. The whole pollution aspect, we talked about this a lot before. Our lakes are more polluted now than they've ever been since I've seen. There's been some improvements like on the Great Lakes up there with water quality issues. But in other terms, you have so much point source pollution that it goes into our lakes and rivers and creeks that feed these lakes. Most of the polluters just got to get a slap on the hand. And until we have politicians in positions of power that legislate regulation on these companies that pollute our creeks and streams and rivers, where they don't get a slap on the fine, they're going to say, you guys want to pollute Elk River that's flowing into Grand Lake with all your chicken crap? We're going to shut you down. We're going to shut your plant down for a month until you fix this. We're not going to give you a $50,000 fine. You got to have people held accountable for pollution, because if you don't, it's back to the dark side, guys. You can't continually pollute and pollute and pollute our lakes and expect to have a different result. And the problem you have with pollution, people can't see it. It's like people can't see pollution a lot of times in the air and the water, so there's a disconnect. It's the same thing what happened with the nuclear accident in Chernobyl in 1986. A lot of people denied the reality of it because they couldn't see it. They couldn't see the radioactive particles in the air. So that's sort of the same with that. Another thing with this is tournament organizations have got to take on more responsibility than what they're having right now. Because right now, the problem you have with tournament organizations that influence so much of the sport, that they influence the trends in the industry, they influence buying, they influence a lot of different factors. There is very little transparency in tournament organizations. It's like clandestine. There's like a cloud of secrecy behind the decisions that they make in there. And until they become more transparent, because that transparency is part of the responsibility of having a major tournament organization. We don't have that right now, guys. Prime example is that there is more rule violations and cheating going on in bass tournaments this year than I have ever seen in my life, because I get pictures and videos texted to me all the time about people blatantly violating the rules in some of the major tournament organizations, and there's nothing that's done about it. It's like the tournament director will say, oh, don't worry about that, we're not going to do anything about it, or you just need to keep your mouth shut, or you need to keep your nose out of this. And you continually see all this evidence of rule violations, and it's either a slap on the wrist, it's a 45-minute, they got to sit out for 45 minutes before they go fish, or there's a 2-pound penalty, or there's a $5,000 fine or something. But until tournament organizations start to have this complete transparency in the way that they make their decisions and run their business, especially like with the electronic situations, It's never going to get better because right now nobody knows. There's this big cloud of secrecy hanging over it. So the combination of pollution, of exploding unregulated technology, of fishing pressure that the lakes cannot sustain, all of those things that we are in the middle of right now are leading us down this dark path. It's the bad path to be on because there's nothing good going to come out of it, guys. Everything I mentioned, exploding technology, increased fishing pressure, pollution, all that leads to is the eventual destruction of our sport. And that's where we are headed on right now. Make no mistake about it. Now, here's how you fix that. This is how you can go down the good path, the light path, the way of, integrity and morals and ethics and responsible thinking. First thing you do is you regulate and stop this technology. You set a baseline, just like Major League Baseball does not allow technology to influence the sport. They got a bat, a ball, a glove. You set a baseline for technology within the tournament organizations, and that baseline, it will bleed over into the recreational anglers. You set a deal where tournament anglers across the board, this is what they're allowed. They're allowed one 2D sonar unit and a GPS on the console, one 2D sonar unit and a GPS up front. That's the baseline for technology with it. None of this 6 units or 10 live scope transducers or whatever, that's gone. That's the first thing that you do. And by maintaining that baseline, then fishing, the value of fishing, it's sustainable past that. You're not gonna look 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road and we're gonna have some different playing field or some different rules. You got a baseline that the sport goes upon, and that baseline, it ensures that, like a lot of these open water fish now that have to have that deep water sanctuary, they're getting plucked out of there by forward facing sonar and that type of technology. Those fish, they regain their sanctuary out there. They need that protected area. They need to be able to roam undisturbed out there in open water because that segment of the fish population serves as a protected brood stock for the rest of the lake. They come and go in and out of shallow water. They need to be protected because, make no mistake about it, a ton of those forward-facing sonar fish out there, they're getting eaten by meat hunters that are adopting forward-facing sonar more. They're dying from barotrauma issues when they're caught out of that deep water. That takes it out of it. So that really increases our sustainability by putting that baseline on technology. The next thing you do with that is you form a regulatory committee that monitors these tournaments in the United States on a national level. Every single state has it. Say, for example, in the state of Missouri, if a tournament organization wants to have a tournament, they have to go through this agency and they have to file a permit and they have to have the tournament scheduled where there's not another tournament on the lake. We have 365 days out of the year, guys. There's plenty of time to have tournaments throughout the years without having 10 tournaments on one Saturday on a May day on Table Rock Lake. So you have this agency that not only monitors and regulates the number of tournaments, but when they can be there, but they also monitor how the fish are taken care of. If these people cannot verify and show that they have their weigh-in facilities set up to they can, safely handle these fish, better yet, have them do it like on MLF. That is the greatest thing about MLF, guys, is you weigh your fish and you put them back in the lake. Ideally, that's what we need to have. We need to change that to that particular format. If you regulate these tournaments, make sure that the catch and release is a primary focus on it and stagger them out. That's going to be a big role with it too. Next thing we have to do, guys, is we have got to, now this is a non-negotiable thing, we have got to start putting politicians in the position of power on the local, state, and federal level that understand the importance of protecting the environmental safeguards for our air and water quality. Just like what I said before about, slapping these polluters on the wrist, and then having them do it again in 2 or 3 years, we have got to have some type of a national initiative set up that guarantees that our air and our water are going to be protected. It's going to be the most important thing because, guys, you name me one more thing that is more important than having clean air and clean water. If you don't have clean air and clean water, if you've got water that's got carcinogens in it and air that has carcinogens in it, where the cancer rate is going to spike and where the autism rates in children are going to spike simply because all these pollutants in our air and the water, what is more important than that? And I am so tired of this bullshit about people trying to assign some type of a political agenda to people that want to safeguard our air and water quality, because there's nothing more important. If we don't have a renewable, clean air and water on this planet, nothing else matters. The quality of life goes downhill, fishing goes downhill, everything out there. So we have got to have responsible people that are not motivated by special interest groups to allow them to pollute waters, and set legislation to do that. And that is one that needs to be at the top of the list right now. And if we do not do that, we're headed down it right now. We're headed down this dark road, the dark path. We're headed down the dark side. But think about it, guys. If we had legislation in place that says, you guys aren't going to do that. You guys are not going to be allowed to pump this much sulfur dioxide into the air. You're not going to be allowed to pump this much mercury or whatever it is into the creeks. You're not going to be allowed to put all this cattle or chicken feed or turkey plant affluent into the water. You're not going to do it. We're going to shut you down if you do that, because our air and water is more important to our grandchildren than you making a $6 billion profit last year. That is one of the big issues that we have. So the main thing about it, guys, we have a decision to make. We can continue heading down this dark road, and we can devastate and we can destroy our sport simply by denying the reality of it, or we can make changes and we can have this vibrant, healthy, sustainable playing field where our sport grows and gets better every single year as far as the quality of fishing and maintaining this balance that goes with that. And right now, make no mistake about it, it is tilted in the wrong direction. Guys, if you're one of those people that think everything's rosy in the sport and everything's good, you are in denial of reality, because it may be temporary. It may be temporarily sustainable at the moment, but when you multiply the increases in everything that I talk about, the increases of technology, the increase in fishing pressure, the increase in development in and around our lakes, the increase of everything that has a negative effect on this sport, it is going to have a bad impact. It may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, it may take 20 years, it may take 30 years. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it is going to happen. There's no doubt at all with that. So anyway, if you're one of the people out there that love the sport like I do, I absolutely love bass fishing, guys. It is my life, and I want to see it sustained and in good shape and healthy and strong for the next generation that is going on past us right now. But right now, in 2024, we are the most irresponsible generation of bass fishermen that has ever been in the sport. We are the most destructive generation of bass anglers for everything that I talked about that has ever been in here. We are in denial of reality, and we have got to have a paradigm shift in the way that we think. If we don't change the way that we think, and we don't have this paradigm shift in the way that we run this sport, it is not going to be here forever. I can assure you with that. So anyway, guys, get on the light side, get off of that dark path, get with the good fight that we're talking about here, and we can turn it around, man. We can turn all this around. It's just a matter of deciding to do so. So anyway, guys, shoot me your thoughts. Let me be curious to know. We'll talk later.